Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniXDBS, and today we are going to talk about one of the main elephants in the meta room, and that would actually be Gogeta Xeno. So we're in a weird space, right? And that weird space that I'm speaking about is one of the most devastating decks in this current format. It is a deck that has a lot of variance. Yes, it can low roll, but when it high rolls, it is nearly unstoppable, especially when it wins the die roll. So I don't want to just go in and pick up the pitchforks and start trying to yell about it. I want to talk about the deck and really dive into why it does what it does, which cards hold it together in the ways that it operates, and then maybe discuss on how we could potentially hamper the deck in the future if we want to kind of balance out the format. So, with that being said, if you like this sort of content, whether you realize that in the middle, whether you know it now, whether you're just revisiting the channel but you haven't subscribed yet, whether you get to the end, you go, you know what, that was a good video. Think about hitting that subscribe button, join the Universe X family, and we will keep it going with Dragon Ball Super content. We're gonna get into One Piece when more info comes out and we get our hands on some product. We're really just gonna be doing a lot of stuff. Past that, just want to go on to say you should probably visit the official Facebook group where you're going to get official spoilers and official announcements, the unofficial discussion group, the unofficial Reddit, my own Discord, the Universe X Facebook page. All these places you can just find plenty of information about this game. You've got my partial sponsor, TCGMetalZ, that makes all these cool metal cards. You've got my two other channels, UniXDB and UniX Gotcha, where I play different anime games, you know, Dragon Ball in one, other animes in the other. And yeah, we kind of have fun here. So with that out of the way, let's put the template up and let's talk about the first and foremost, like, you know, the leader card itself. You've got Son Goku and Vegeta. And I know some people already know how this deck works, but maybe you need a more in-depth look. Or maybe you're new and you don't know what the hullabaloo is about. We're gonna get into it. So you've got the Son Goku and Vegeta leader. Auto once per turn, when you play a battle card with a Union Fusion skill, draw one card, and when this card attacks, draw one card and add up to one card from your life to your hand. Activate main once per turn, send up to 5 cards from the top of your deck to the warp. And when your life is at 4 or less, you may draw one card, switch to one of your energy to active mode, and flip this card over. So the first thing you need to understand about this is that this deck is a combo deck. And you can see how you draw a card from Union Fusion. Well, the Union Fusions in this deck allow you to use materials from the warp. So when you take that top 5 and you put it into the warp, you were hopefully setting up the Gokus and Vegetas needed to go into Gogetas. And that is the first part about this archetype. You were picking up the top 5 cards of your deck and you were loading your warp extremely fast. Now, when it swings, you are going +2 because you were getting a card from the top of your deck and the card from your life. That's a huge, huge boon. And then, mind you, when you have the Goku and Vegeta with the corresponding powers in your warp, if you Union Fuse, you're not negging a card because you're playing the card from your hand and you're immediately replacing it with this leader's effect. So this leader is a +2 leader every turn it's on its awakened side. Now, once it awakens, it still retains the effect to just, you know, draw a card whenever you Union Fuse. However, this guy, when he attacks, you draw a card and then you can send up to the top 5 cards of your deck to your warp. So you're still going to be drawing a card per turn. He becomes a +1. You can go break even when he fuses still. But the other thing now is that you can add a card from your life to your hand to choose 2 of your black battle cards with an energy cost of 1 to gain 10,000 power for the turn, or until the opponent's next turn. So its backside isn't as important as its front side, but that last activate main can push game, and I'll show you why later. So the main reason why most people will complain about this deck comes down to one of the best black boss cards ever printed in the game, and that's SS3 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. It is unique, it has double strike, overwhelm 6, but you never really use it for that. The fusion is the way you get this out. Union Fusion, Son Goku Xeno and Vegeta Xeno. And you can use those from the warp like I stated before. Now this card is a 25k double strike who warps something when he swings on his auto. The issue with this is that this is incredibly powerful for a 1-drop. That's right, a 1-drop. If you haven't played against this deck, you need to understand that your opponent can open up by warping 5, and if they just get that Goku and Vegeta with the matching power, they can then pay 1 to play this from their hand and then draw a card from their leader ability. And yes, there are cards that can get rid of it. Realm of the Gods are cards, or the whole cycle can just put this guy out of his misery. However, if they're going second, or you know, they're just playing it for 1 at any time, you still have to deal with it the turn they're turning it sideways. And if you're going first, whatever you played on turn 1 is likely getting mised by this guy's auto. He's also coming in on turn 1 for 25k. Even if they just play it on their turn 1 and let it sit, you still have to open up with the Realm of the Gods card most times to get it off the field. Or if you're playing the mirror, that's when it's not safe to just play it preemptively and just wait on it, because your opponent can respond with their own. Or you can respond with your own if you're playing the same deck. But this is actually really crazy. Now, one of the other pieces in this deck that are kind of crazy is you have SS3 Gogeta, Marvelous Might, Barrier, Union Fusion, and that's gonna be paid for 1 the same way. Now this guy's 20k, and he doesn't seem as imposing as Thwarting, but the thing is, you can pay another energy to put him at the bottom of the deck and then play 2 1-drops from your drop area or your warp. These are going to be the 1-drops that can normally go up in stature when your opponent plays certain effects, or they can take life in order to go up. So when it comes to range, this deck can really awaken anything. Like, let's say somehow their awakening got stalled, which is really hard to do when, you know, you can take a life every turn. You can play Marvelous Might, and Marvelous Might can put out 2 1-drops, and those 2 1-drops can take your life for you, and then you have your awakening turn right there. So it's very hard to manipulate this deck, because this deck really does what it wants. Now, past that though, this is going to be 3 swings for 2 energy. You swing this card is going to be able to put itself at the bottom of the deck and play 2 1-drops, and those 2 1-drops are going to be able to be boosted by your Unison, which can +10 them, and your leader, which can +10 them. Turn these guys into 25k base swings off of virtually nothing. And then, even adding on more to the offense, they kind of caught a slight nerf. However, they also gained SSG Trunks Power Awaken. And if you haven't seen this guy from Realm of the Gods, he's a instant black staple. Deflect, dual attack, permanent. When this card is removed from the field, he's removed from the game. Or battle area, he's removed from the game. Now, auto, when this card attacks, you place up to 3 black battle cards from your warp into their drop areas. Activate main, you pay 2. If there are, if your lead card is black and there are 8 or more cards in your warp, play this card from your warp. Now, because this specifically says 8 or more cards and not 8 or more battle cards, you're stuck in a space where 2 resolutions of Gogeta Xeno are going to your leader card, are going to turn on this guy. If in 2 resolutions and 10 cards on the top of your deck, if you can flip this guy over, you can play him. And this really does start showing you the amounts of aggression this can happen. Now we're gonna go over 2 more cards, and I'm gonna line up the play for you. Next, we're going to talk about SS4 Son Goku Beyond All Limits. It is a 6-cost overrun. Like, you have to have 6 cards engraved. And when it comes down, you're going to be able to add up to 1 black battle card with energy cost between 3 and 7 from your warp to your hand. And if you look back at some of the cards we have, both Thwarting the Dark Empire and Marvelous Might are both 6 costs. So you're going to be able to recycle them. Even if they get removed from the game, you'll be able to bring them back to your hand. Or if you warp them, you'll be able to bring them back to your hand to be able to use them further. And this doesn't cost any energy. So he's just a free 30k that comes out. Now you also have SS4 Bardock fighting against Fate. Now this one isn't as popular as it used to be because the Goku is 30k, it's a Goku, and you can line it with the 30k SS4 Vegetas for Gogeta Xeno plays. But this guy still is heat. He still is able to swing, and he's incredibly impressive when you put him in simplified game states or early game states. Which I guess kind of par simplified game states. So, the things that this is able to do, right? On turn 1, you can, we're not going to talk about low rolls because any deck can draw bad, but I want to let you know how this deck can play when it does just pretty well, all right? You, turn 1, charge, you activate his ability, you mill the top 5 from your deck to the warp. Oh, you got a 30k Vegeta and a 30k Goku, cool. Pay 1, play Thwarting from your hand. So your field is your leader and this 25k double striker. Your opponent then has their first turn. They charge one, and they have that first turn to try to deal with a untapped thwarting. It's essentially Realm of the Gods or bust almost in this case. Your next turn, Warp 5. If you see a Trunks, the Super Saiyan God Trunks I was talking about, your next turn can literally be charge, Warp 5, oh, I saw a Trunks, tap both Trunks, and you can swing with your leader. Or you can swing with your leader first just to, kind of see how your opponent reacts, see what they play, especially if they keep the energy up. Swing with your leader, draw a card from your life. Then, after you see how they take that, that's 10k, 10k, early game, they might take it. They might even combo out of it because you're Gogeta Xeno and they know they might not be able to combo out of later damage. You then tap your 2 energy and you play your Trunks. Trunks swings, Trunks swings. You are able to then put 6 cards from your warp to your drop. Gogeta Xeno swings. If all these attacks went through for any reason, your opponent is at a lower life total. You have your leader attack that should be blocked. You have Trunks that goes in. You have Trunks that goes in. They might already be at 7 life. You then, so if you get them down to 5 and you swing with the Gogeta Xeno, it's going to be kind of rough for them to combo out of it. It's 10k to 25k your favor. So they might drop down, or they might cannibalize their hand, or they might negate. But then you have 6 cards in warp, so you can now remove those 6 to play Goku Beyond All Limits and take something back from your warp to your hand. Or you can play Fighting Against Fate and get 2 more swings in. So on turn 2, while you are on 1 energy, a Gogeta Xeno player can swing on you with their leader, Trunks, Gogeta Xeno, and either one more time with their Overwhelm, or another time if it's Fighting Against Fate. That is 5 to 6 swings on turn 2. And the crazy part about it is they don't necessarily need to get into an end game because their end game is playing this board again. The thwarting the Dark Empire can be established with another energy. The Trunks can be established with 2 energy, but there are cards that aren't unique. Like, you can establish with this, you can establish a SS3 Gogeta. Like, let's say, for instance, you don't get any of this off the field somehow. You're struggling to survive and you can't afford to tap out against this deck, which is a very real possibility. And you don't play red, you don't have Violent Rays, or maybe you're playing red and you didn't see it. You don't get rid of any of this board, and what's gonna happen next turn is that they're going to be able to then, if they want to, tap 1 for Marvelous Might. They're going to be able to swing at you for, 20 for Trunks, 20 for Trunks, another 25 for Gogeta Xeno, Thwarting Dark Empire. Then they can Overwhelm and hit you with another 6 cost Overwhelm, so that's 1 to 2 swings really depending. Then they can put this at the bottom of the deck and play 2 1-drops. And if they're awakened by now, they can take a life and pump those 1-drops up to 15Ks. If they have their Unison on board, they can use the Unison effect to +1 again. Those are 25Ks, 2 more swings. This deck can potentially put 8 swings on board turn 3. And the whole thing about this is normally it's easy come, easy go. You put out damage, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. But that's not the case with Gogeta Xeno, because across the sets, Black has been getting more and more defensive cards. Let's actually go over to talk about the first one. If you got Supreme Kai, Time Labyrinth Unleashed, this card is a counter attack, and if your opponent has 3 or more cards in their warp, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 2. If you or your opponent. So this is very easy to proc with Gogeta Xeno. It's active actually on turn 1 with your leader effect. So if your leader card is black, when this card is played using counterattack, you choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and you warp it. And then it comes back to you negate their skills and you warp it. Actually, I think you just warp it, yeah? And then you play it with its skills negated at the end of the turn. So what ends up happening here is this is a 2-for-1. If your opponent has 2 cards on the board, you can negate the attack and remove their other card. This is a very dangerous card that comes through for a lot of cool plays. Oh, you've got a double striker or a double attacker. I'm gonna negate it, remove it. Okay, you have an established board. I'm gonna negate this attack and remove something. So you have to sequence very, very tight when you're playing against these guys. Let's say you now like you can have a secret rare, like the Vegeta secret rare. You can't even swing with it against one open energy because of this card and another card we're going to talk about momentarily. But this is a 2-for-1 negate. The next card we actually have that's a negate is Petrification, you know? Petrification, counterattack. If your leader card is black, negate the attack, and you may choose one card in your hand and place it in your drop area. If you place the card in the drop area, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and it can't attack, and it can't be placed in your opponent's combo area or activate skills to the end of your next turn. So, this is a very strong card. Because again, it's another 2-for-1, it's another 1 energy 2-for-1, but you can negate attack and then look at an opponent's card and go, yeah, you're not doing anything. And it's until the end of your next turn. So that's actually very, very, very strong. So you've got multiple 1 energy plays that are going to be super defensive. So a Gogeta Xeno with 1 energy up can stop generally 2 attacks. But a Gogeta Xeno with 2 energy up can potentially stop a board of 4 from doing anything meaningful to your life. And that is a massive, crazy thing to consider, considering that if you don't wipe their board on turn 2, they could easily go into turn 3, play 3 energies worth of cards, awaken, and then hold up 2 for defenses like this. They also got a shadow buff with Pan, Time Patrol Maiden. If you guys don't know that card, it's the secret rare on the screen. You can play her for 2 less for each battle card on the field, and when she hits the board as a counterattack, while she doesn't negate the attack, what she is going to be able to do is stop your opponent from swinging with battle cards for the rest of the turn. That right there is very, very strong. It's just, yeah, that's strong. That's a floodgate. So your opponent can only swing with a leader and a unison. And if you have the right things open, you can start messing with that too. Now, they also received another card, Support of the Dark Empire in Realm of the Gods, which is the black token negate. So now, even when you're tapped out, not only do you have options for sparking if you so choose, but now you can Support of the Dark Empire, potentially getting the Awaken turn 1 turn earlier, and not forcing them to put themselves in weird positions. If they're at 5 life and you swing, yeah, they can protect themselves. Get a token out, take a life, get it ready to awaken next turn. It's a very, very powerful stint. Now, when it comes to defensive cards, they even have more niche defense in the form of Mass Sam, Brainwash No More. If we ever got too many double strikes, or we just got a bunch of quad strikes in the game, or some triple strikes, more triple strikes, you could literally just hold up an energy knowing that you play this card and only gonna take 1 damage. The deck is officially at a point where it swings like a glass cannon, but it also defends itself way better than a glass cannon should. And that's one of the things that's kind of annoying. With these decks, you're normally supposed to trade that massive offensive power for the ability to be wiped out at any time if your pressure isn't strong enough. But this deck is able to put out ridiculous pressure on turns 1 and 2, and then start holding the fort on 3 and 4 while still amassing massive pressure. And right now, there's really only one card that I would say is like a kind of catch-all versus the deck that every deck can use. Like, yes, you have Violent Raise, but Violent Raise isn't the most reliable because they can swing under Violent Raise. The Unison, the Leader, as well as the 1-drops with a single boost can all swing under Violent Raise. So you don't always want to be able to go in on Violent Raise. The only thing I would say is almost like a shoe-in is Protector of the People, because Protector of the People is going to boost every time you get swung on. So you Protector the People, and that negates an attack. They swing at you again, your leader goes from 15 to 20. At this point, they have to start investing things, and you can start investing things at the same rate. If they're swinging with the Trunks and you go up to 20, cool. They might combo to 25, they might not, but you could hit them with a super combo and draw 2. And then be like, okay, swing it again. Swing it again, you're at 25. Now they have to go up to 25, which is a card from their hand, and then you can just break it. At this point, it doesn't matter how many swings they have. Once you get over 20, once you get 2 activations of Protector the People, it is no longer efficient for them to try to outswing you, because they swing the next time at you and you're up at 30. They're not trying to combo 2 cards on top of Trunks. They're not trying to combo a card on top of well, I mean, they might a card on top of thwarting, but then you just a card on top of that. You'll start draining their hand if they try to push through Protector the People, and any deck can actually use this card. So this is, I think, one of the best cards to use against them, and it can kind of double against KP. It can double against U7 Goku sometimes. So I feel like this isn't the worst card to look at or have in your sideboard. Now, when it comes to how I would touch this deck, right? I think the issue is the pacing and specifically the cost. Some people want Beyond All Limits to go. I want to slow down the deck. The deck exists in a space of aggro where no deck should, okay? And for the people that feel like the go-to fix would just be taking the leader and making him only warp the top 3 instead of the top 5, I have a counter argument against that. Vegex is not the model you base Gogeta Xeno off of, because Vegex had hits that you could get from top of the deck, but Vegex just wanted to first and foremost put cards into the drop. If you get the hits, you get the hits and you play them at random, but if you don't get the hits, you still have Overwhelm. Gogeta Xeno is looking to put specifically Gokus and Vegetas in there, and yes, while putting it from 5 to 3 hurts the setup of cards like Trunks, it's gonna make it almost unplayable because you can't readily remove your Gokus and Vegetas. So I don't think it's the top 5 that needs to get hurt. I think it's more of the, you know, just the pace of the game, which is what we're gonna get into, you know? And there are 2 ways you can do this with Gogeta Xeno thwarting, right? You could either I think the harsher of the 2 I have in mind, make it so that its Union Fusion is 2 energy instead of 1. Doing this would prevent you from straight up playing it on turn 1, but it would also make it a weird play on turn 2 because I'm not sure if I want to tap out on turn 2. If I'm going second, I for sure do not want to tap out going to my opponent's turn 3. But if I'm going first, yeah, it's gonna happen. It could probably happen. It might still happen, but it's still a very risky play to tap 2 going to your opponent's 2. For some untapped 2 leaders, that's their awakening turn. That's a dangerous turn. Even for other decks, that's still a turn where you might just have to eat mad damage for no reason. So this makes Gogeta Xeno more of a turn 3 safe drop, or somehow if you've been beaten to your awakening, you can do it on turn 2 and awaken and untap that energy. The other one would be having Gogeta count your opponent's energy from being played. Like, make it so that your opponent has to have 2 energy for you to play Gogeta Xeno, 2 energy or more. So that way you couldn't play it going first on your second turn. You couldn't play it going first or second on your first turn. So you would have to you could still play it for 1, leaving your energy open, but you could play it on turn 3 going first or turn 2 going second. And I think maybe that one's the more generous one because you could play it going second on turn 2, but you could also keep an energy up for defending yourself. But doing that not only gives you a better pacing, but it stops certain things from happening in the same turn. You won't on turn 3 be able to drop a Trunks and the Gogeta Xeno. In fact, if this guy goes to 2 energy, you literally cannot play those 2 in those same turns. You have to play Gogeta on turn 2, and that means you have to play Trunks on turn 3 or vice versa. And I think right then and there, that shifts a crucial turn needed to start getting your setups online, your unisons online, all these things. I think that's very important. The other thing is SS3 Gogeta Marvelous Might. I think this needs a limit 1 on either its summon or its bottom deck effect. I can tell you right now, and this might be me being salty, but at Fest Miami, I was at table 1 facing Gogeta Xeno, I think round 3 or 4. And no, I think it was round 4. And he really did, like, it came out to, we both had like 4 energy, 5 energy. I was like trying to close in on the game. We were going really hard. And he really didn't have much to combo in his hand anymore. Like, he was burnt out. I was pressuring him. But I got hit with the Gogeta Xeno, thwarting the Dark Empire. I got hit with the Trunks. I got hit with a Martial Melee. I got hit with an Overrealm. The Martial Melee burst itself to send itself to the bottom of the deck to play the 2 1-drops. I got hit with, and not all this happened in 1 turn. Some of this was on from last turn. But after the Martial Melee did its thing, he was able to play a Marvelous Might. He was able to play a second Marvelous Might, swing again for 20k. I blocked it, and then he popped it again for the 2 like 1-drops, and I was like, okay, that's it. And he was under King Vegeta's Imposing Presence. If it was a Protector of the People, that would have not even been a factor. That would have been a shutout for that turn, because I would have had game next turn, just because he had no hand and everything was on board. But the amount that can come out of this card and the fact that it's not limit 1, I think its activate main should probably be limit 1. Or maybe even it's just playing itself, maybe just being played as a limit 1. Because you already have unique on thwarting the Dark Empire, SS3 thwarting. So maybe unique, not even unique, just limit 1 on its Union Fusion. And past that, I really think those are the only things that I would change with the deck, because those two will make it so that the entire deck shifts about a turn. And if it can shift a turn, maybe 2 turns, that gives you the space needed to actually set up and have a decent game while still maintaining this deck's top end and middle end. You can still have insane pressure. On turn 5, if you need to go all out to burst your opponent and they don't have a floodgate, you can still play upwards of 7-8 swings, but that's turn 5 versus turn 2 and 3. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this discussion. I really just wanted to kind of, like I said, discuss the elephant in the room and talk about Gogeta Xeno and how I think it should be touched. If you like series like this, we can maybe go into other decks. I can do some research, some more in-depth research on King Piccolo and kind of like see how I want to tackle that. But yeah, you guys let me know. And thank you guys for watching. I really enjoy making content for you. Just trying to be one of the best, if not the best, you get to watch. Thanks, and I'll see you later.